All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we have Jeff Kikel, who is the Freedom Guide. Jeff, how you doing?
I am fantastic, Timmy. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, man. And
Excited to be on the show.
dude, we're excited to have you. And what me and Jeff found out right before we started recording is that we're both right here in Central Texas. So there we go.
It's literally like 10 minutes apart, which is
Yeah.
hilarious.
So epic. So epic. Well, awesome, man. We like to jump right in. So if you could start with telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you like to do for fun, that'd be great.
What do I like to do for fun? God, I build businesses apparently. No, so my name's Jeff Kikel. I've been basically in the financial services industry for about the last 30 years. Really traditional wealth management, financial planning, working with people to build retirement plans. And, about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I wrote my first book, and it was actually a book designed to teach people or to teach retirement to police officers. And it was during a time, it was like when the first riots were happening and stuff like that. And, it was the beginning of, I think, a lot of cops starting to want to retire. And it was a market that I was working in at the time. And, I just knew that a lot of these guys just didn't have a plan of attack. Well, I was trying to figure out how to promote the book. And I said, well, maybe, doing a podcast might work. And I was thinking to myself, well, probably need to listen to a podcast first. I'd never even listened to a podcast at that point. And what I always do, which is let me see if I can find a book. And so I start searching for a book. I find this book by a guy named John Lee Dumas, had a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire, which for those of us that are in the podcasting world, he's a hero because he really just kind of made it happen. And I started listening to his podcast, and his podcast, the first, let's say 40, 45 shows were him interviewing some of the people, and these now, 8 years later or 7 years later have become just gurus on the internet. And this was like at the beginning when they were just getting started. And I would hear these stories about how they started up all these businesses and they went online and they created, content and all this. And, they created courses and they made money. And I started looking at it and going, well, I'm no different than they are. I'm not a dumb guy. I'm motivated as hell. So I started listening to these over and over and over again, or I started listening to them and got to the point where I was traveling between Dallas and Austin a lot. And I would listen to these podcasts at double speed so that I could get as many of them in as I could. And so I was listening to like 8 in one direction, 8 in the other direction. And I call it entrepreneurial brainwashing.
Yeah.
But what I realized is I had always really been an entrepreneur. Now I'd worked for other people for 20, 3 years at that point, but I'd always been an entrepreneur. And I started to analyze my life and I'm like, crap, I was an entrepreneur even inside of other people's companies
Yeah.
because I was always the guy that was like, hey, Jeff, we got this crazy, idiotic project that we need done. Here's some money, go do it. And I would do that. And then I'd get bored with it once it was up and running and I'd move on to the next project, which, if you know, is a definition of an entrepreneur. Hey, we fix problems, get it done. We get bored when things aren't like that anymore and we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, crap, I really hate the job I have right now. I was in a job working, it was kind of what would some people would call a dream job. I call nightmares dreams too. And it was kind of a nightmare job that I had. And I really just was tired. And I was reaching that point in my life where I said, screw it. I just don't want to do it anymore. And decided I was going to quit my job. Had the worst interview or the worst performance review that I'd had in a 30-year career, where basically they told me I was worth nothing and I was horrible. And actually, the president of the company flatly told me, you are the worst employee we've ever had. You're too independent. You just go do things without asking permission. And I was like, but that's what you asked me to do.
Hmm.
So that was the moment, and everybody has the moment. And that was the moment where I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go do this. And if I have to live in a car, I'm going to go live in a car. but I'm going to go start my own business, build my own business. And that was 8 years ago. I built my first business, which is a co-working space, which I'm sitting in the middle right now. Launched my own financial practice, independent. Launched multiple businesses over that time period. So at one time, I had 8 different businesses going. And over the last year, ended up having a 7-figure exit from one of those businesses, sold another one for 6 figures, and I closed a couple and really honed myself down into 3 businesses now. My co-working business, which we're really morphing into a real estate business, my financial practice, which is kind of all that is what I call Freedom Day, and we'll talk about that. And then I have a media company that really publishes all my books, manages my podcasts, does everything that is media. I call it the propaganda arm for everything that is Jeff. And that's what I do for a living every day. And hobby wise, I like to travel, but I love building businesses and I love helping people build businesses.
There we go. There we go. So you weren't kidding when you said building businesses was you did
That's
for
what I
fun.
do, man. That's what I do. It's literally, I go back and I say, everybody talks about the pandemic and how horrible it was. And I'm like, it was the best thing that happened to me because it made me slow down.
Yeah.
Because I was literally going at such a pace prior to the pandemic. I mean, if we'd had this conversation, well, we probably wouldn't have had time for this conversation, prior to the pandemic. But, before March 18th of 2020, I basically worked 18, 20-hour days, slept for 4 hours, woke up, did it all over again. 7 days a week, I was doing this, never took any time. I was just focused on building businesses. And when when everything happened with COVID and we had to kind of shut things down, we had to stay open because we do mail for like 175 businesses here. So we had to be here. So my wife and I got up every morning, went to work, sat in an empty building basically with a few people coming in. And all of a sudden it was like, well, why the hell are we getting here before 9 a.m.? And why are we staying past 4? And so all of a sudden it was like, well, okay, now we're going to open from 9 to 4.
Yeah.
And I would go home and I'm like, shoot, I didn't used to get home before 7 o'clock. Now I've got like 3 hours. I live literally 2 minutes from the office. So I've got like 3 extra hours in my day. That's kind of cool. I can actually get some hobbies in
So let me
during this
build another
time period. Yeah.
business.
No, and I didn't though. That was the thing. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, let's just slow down a bit. Let's refocus. And that was where it all began. And I started to look at the Freedom Day concepts. I started to really realize that I needed to implement that for myself. I was teaching my clients to do this, but I wasn't doing it for myself.
Mm, I love it. Well, talk to us about first we're gonna jump into your motivation. What really gets you up
Yeah.
and keeps you going? Then we're gonna jump
Yep.
to details of the businesses.
So motivation for me, when my business partner approached me to sell, basically sell the business to him last year, I had this old mindset of I need to rethink the way we do things in the wealth management business. I just know that the wealth management business is not working the way it should be for most people. That whole concept of, save for 40 years, put it into a 401k,
Yeah.
when you turn 65, you downsize your house, throw on black, socks and sandals, get a crappy car and go on one cruise per year. I mean, that's not what people want.
Yeah.
And I was seeing that with my clients. I was seeing it with myself. I just didn't want to, I didn't want to live that life anymore. And I had to figure out, okay, well, how do you break the system? How do you break this? I amass this amount of money and then I turn that into an income stream. And I started to realize that it's all about cash flow. You got to focus on cash flow, not assets. Focus on cash flow, focus on assets that create cash flow, and that solves the problem. And
Yeah.
then all you have to do is focus on, this is what it costs me to live. This is the cash flow I've created. If the right-hand side is bigger than the left-hand side, you're free. Done. Simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's not what the industry taught us. The industry taught us, well, you have to amass massive amounts of money and then you can take 4% off of that. Well, that's crap. And it's the reason is because the industry is designed around amassing massive amounts of money, because that's how they make money.
Yep.
And they'll tell you that's the only way to do it. And so that was my journey, and it's the journey I tried. That's the passion of my life now. I didn't become financially free because I invested money for the last 30 years. I became financially free because I stopped kind of living the get up every morning and go to a cubicle and die a little bit every day. I stopped working for other people and started working for myself, which is not the path for everybody, but it's the path for some of us.
Yep.
And I built businesses. Okay, that generated income. And then I started buying some real estate, which generated cash flow. And for some people, that might be their drug. It may be starting in something on the internet that generates cash. That's it. So I just want to encourage people that there's something different out there. And so a lot of what I do today is it's education, but I also work with some individuals one-on-one, and it's helping them to kind of design their life and figure out where they're going. But it's not just financial freedom. It's three things. It's time freedom. I would never have been able to do what I do had I not quit my job. Now, stupid idea, by the way. Not really having a plan of how I was going to actually generate the revenue. I just kind of jumped out there and said, well, screw it, I'll figure it out. Not a good plan. Start a side hustle, build up, and get yourself to that point. There's financial freedom, which is simple. Like I said, as long as the right-hand side is bigger than the left-hand side, you're free. But I also teach people about what I call freedom of intention. And this is a little bit of a different one. We're taught by my industry that you have to basically not do all the fun things in life. You just got to keep saving. You got to keep putting money away, amass this amount of money. And you have to put off things like wanting to travel and put off things like, doing this or that. And we make you feel bad because we tell you, okay, well, if you buy a $5 Starbucks coffee, do you know what that means? Or how much that would add up to over time? Screw it. Buy a friggin' cup of coffee if you want to have a cup of coffee.
Yep.
You know the risks of that. Find a way to generate an income stream. So that freedom of intention really starts with what I call, or it's just building a bucket list. And a lot of times it's people later in life to build a bucket list, but I want people as early in life to build a bucket list. And I want them to reward themselves along the way. And that's really the key to this, because if you tell somebody, okay, you need to start saving for 40 years from now for this fun that's going to happen in 40 years, young people are going, well, screw it. That's way too long. I can't focus on that. And people that get out there that are, let's say, 10 years away from retirement, they're in like panic mode because they're like, oh, well, now I'll never get to retire. I'm going to have to work forever.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is just giving up and not trying. But if you reward yourself along the way and you say, you know what, I've got, let's say, 10 items on my bucket list that are $400 or less. Well, if I just created some kind of an income stream, maybe I bought a piece of real estate or I did something along the real estate route that generates $400 of cash flow per month, then I can pretty much reward myself with each of those little things. Let's say I have 12 of them. I can do one a month with that extra $400 of cash flow. And then when I'm done all those bucket list items, I still have $400 a month of cash flow.
Yeah.
That I can use.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And so the three freedoms, it was time freedom, financial freedom, and then freedom of intention.
Freedom of intention.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And so your motivation, the thing that really gets you up and keeps you going, was that moment And in that moment leading to your desire to break the system for yourself, get your own
Yep.
freedom day, and also help others do the same.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's really the key to this is, I don't necessarily have to work for the rest of my life. I built that cash flow to where I don't have to work, but I want to work and I want to help other people realize that. That's what I love to do and I love to teach, whether it's through the YouTube channel, through the podcast, speaking, working with people individually, whatever it is, that's my passion. I mean, that I know this is my life's mission now.
Yeah, I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about your dreams and goals, vision for
Mhm.
your businesses and
Yep.
vision for your life. And as you do, kind of explain to us how the co-working space is turning into like a real estate business and then also
Mhm.
where your kind of financial advisor business is.
Sure. Well, so in my case, let's start with the real estate, or let's start with the co-working spaces. I mean, I looked at our revenue profile, and I'm like, one, we're massively susceptible to economic downturns because I have entrepreneurs primarily that work with me, and people that work with other companies that could get laid off and everything else. So there is a risk to that. And so I looked at, well, how can we change those risks? And how can we work towards Jeff's long term goal that he has along with his wife, which is I want to, within 24 months, be able to separate myself from my businesses and not have to be physically there. How can I do this without having to, be involved in every decision? So we have a very specific structured approach to what we're doing for the next 24 months. I actually use Mike McCallotz's book Clockwork
Okay.
as a book to kind of build, basically a design philosophy to how to do that. So, one of the things I looked at was, okay, how do we change our revenue profile for the business? How can we add other revenue sources? So, one source was, and I'm in the process of getting approved to become a testing center for IT certifications.
Mm,
So no matter what happens, people are still going to have to get those IT certifications. So that's a consistent flow of people coming in. We're going to do some training. So we're going to bring in people to do training in that world. Okay. Boom. That's another revenue source. And then, I've done real estate, but I wanted to ramp up and amp up the real estate arm of the company, which is we focus on first, we're focusing on wholesaling. So we're really good marketers, and to be a good wholesaler, finding opportunities that are not just published on the market, I need to be a great marketer, and which we're great marketers. So we're going to start by building up a wholesaling business. Once I get it to the point where that's generating revenue, I can hire people to run that part of the business. We're going to focus on starting to build a rental real estate portfolio. And that starts to add assets to the company and cash flow so that we're not interdependent on all that. And once again, Jeff doesn't have to be involved in every minute of that. I can hire good people to do that part. The wealth management practice is a little bit less of traditional wealth management. I do more education. I don't do as much hand to hand, one on one working with clients anymore, just because I have so many people that I reach. I just can't. So I have to be really selective with the clients that I work with, and they've really got to be one of two people. One, they've got to be somebody that is willing to break the old way of doing things. They can't be that person coming to me going, okay, well, I'm going to work for the next 30 years and save money and all that. Great, that's fine. There's 80 million other people that could help you with this. If you want to come in, build a plan that says, I need to get out of this job in the next 10 years, I'm your guy. I'm going to help you build that plan. I'm going to help you invest your money. I'm going to help you get the right help so that you can build that design and get you to that exit point in 10 years or less. and it's not hard to do. I mean, I did it in 7. Um, the media arm is really just growing, and it's that arm that reaches out to the world. And so that's really my focus for this year, is really the media arm of getting the propaganda out there, getting it in front of as many people as possible. And, then we kind of work with you down the road, and all of the businesses kind of interdepend upon each other
Yeah,
as a result.
absolutely. What are you guys going to be wholesaling for real estate? Is it going to be single family homes, land, multifamily, commercial?
Yeah, single family and multifamily. Primarily single family. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity out there, and we'll wholesale in multiple markets. So, I'm not going to just be dependent on the Austin market. I mean, we're going to be looking across the country and be very hyper focused on specific areas. One of the things we do extraordinarily well, and it was something that it was one of these things I blundered into on a website, a real estate website, was we specialize in midterm rentals, and we work with traveling nurses. So, they typically are going to come into town. So instead of being an Airbnb, where you've got people moving in and out every few days, a midterm rental is typically 30 days, and with traveling nurses, they work 13-week contracts. And quite often they might work a second contract. So you might have that person for 26 weeks. So you're not
Yeah.
having to they're really easy to deal with. They're awesome people. You don't really have to vet them, as a tenant, because they're already vetted. They work for hospitals.
Yeah.
So they don't really, they're easygoing, they're nice people, because that's kind of the nature of who they are. And it's a very easy, simple business. So you find a property, whether I'm buying the property or whether I'm master leasing it from somebody else, and we put furniture in it, we put it up on a website, we get a tenant in there, and we've got a tenant for 13 weeks.
Mm.
And they typically are going to pay 150 to 200% more than the standard rent that's out there.
And that'll be the rental portfolio side of the
Yeah,
business.
it'll be the rental portfolio side. So one of the good things about, and why I decided to build a wholesale portfolio, is I get to pick off the best deals. Basically we're going to go out and we're going to find deals for other folks, but we're going to keep the best deals for ourselves, and we'll just build that portfolio on that. We're hyper targeting markets where there's a concentration of hospitals surrounding them, and it's easy and convenient for nurses to get there.
I gotcha. And are you guys reaching out to these sellers direct mail, texting, cold calling? What's your
Yes.
retail method? All of them.
Yes, all the above.
There we go.
We one of the advantages I have over a lot of people that are starting in wholesaling, most people start in wholesaling and they have no money.
Yep.
So
Kills
they
them.
they've got to go drive for dollars, and it's just, it sucks. It's like being a brand new financial advisor. It just sucks.
Yeah.
But if you don't really have to worry about the money side, I mean, I have a budget. I'm not going to commit all my money to it, but I have a budget where it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and in fact, I'm going to show people how to do this. On our YouTube channel, I'm launching this in about a month and a half. What I call Project RA. So it's actually named after a gentleman named Robert Allen, who is a legend in the real
Yeah.
estate
The house
industry.
house a year, right?
A house a year, and really the guy that created or popularized low money down, cash, no cash or low money down investing.
Really?
All those, yeah, he was the guy back in the 80s that created that, or he wasn't the guy that created, but he was the guy that popularized it. And then all these other scum came in and basically copied what he did, and then sold all these courses online, and on infomercials and stuff like that. And
Are you talking he popularized when you're saying low money down, are you talking seller finance?
yep, seller financing, be just creative financing
Yeah.
in general. I mean, he's genius with creative financing. And I where I where I really learned a lot. I mean, I became obsessive. I got one book of his, and most of his books are still probably 20 years old at this point. He hasn't really done a lot of new stuff. And I read one of his books, and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. I want to go to the next one. And I started reading all these old books. And I mean, the stuff hasn't changed. I mean, real estate's real estate.
Yeah.
Some of the rules have changed a little bit, but what really helped was I ordered a book. It was a used book on Amazon, and I thought I was getting a book, and I ended up getting like one of his old courses, which I bet you money was probably $1,000 back in the day. And I bought this thing for 35 bucks.
Hmm.
And literally, this whole thing was, okay, I'm teaching you how to do creative financing, and now I'm going to show you like 175 different examples of how to do creative financing. And so it's like a Bible of think creatively. What can you do? Can you buy something, buy a piece of property, and if you need the money back that you put into it, because there's stuff that you can sell with the property and all this kind of stuff. It just is genius.
Yeah.
And that was my education in it. And it was funny because this all really happened after I decided to sell my business. I had basically 9 months to just do nothing because I wasn't going to work anymore.
Yeah.
And I just literally started absorbing all this stuff on real estate, and went down this kind of rabbit hole of different people in the real estate world that have kind of taught me more of these techniques and strategies, much more than I did before. I realized I would have been, 20 years ahead of where I'm at today on the real estate side. I was doing it the old traditional way, work your butt off, save some money, buy a piece of rental property, rinse and repeat. And, now I'm like, okay, how can I find a piece of property where I don't have to put any money down? Or I can put money into it, build it up, rent it, the burst strategy,
Yep.
buy, rent, or buy, renovate, rent it back out, refinance, repeat,
Yeah.
just keep doing that over and over again. And so all of these cool little strategies, I thank my business partner for really being that impetus to say, okay, well, you're kind of a square peg in a round hole inside of our business right now, and you're not really focused on what we want to do long term. And it helped me to say, okay, well, now I get to do what I want to do
Yeah.
long term.
For sure. 100%. I love it. So right now for dreams and goals, we got remove yourself from your
Yep.
businesses within 24 months.
Yep.
And that's the real estate wholesaling, the rental portfolio, the financial advisor, where it's like helping people get their freedom day, basically, a
Yep.
unique spin on financial advisor.
Mhm.
And then you have I'm blanking. Oh, the
Got
media
the
business.
media arm of the propaganda arm of the company.
Yep.
And my goal with this is, in that 24-month time period, I want to be able to just unplug and go wherever the hell we want to.
Yeah.
My wife and I love to travel. We spent 7 years kind of not traveling like we used to. By the time we had been married for 12 years, we had been to 14 different countries, traveled all over the world, every year, usually 2 trips a year. And then I started running businesses, and we couldn't get away.
Yeah.
And we've reached that point where it's like, okay, now I want to go do this, but I want to do it differently. I want to be able to go over and, let's say, spend a month in England
Yeah.
and just find a little small country town, get a house for a month, and just hang out and be part of the town and do some touristy stuff, but just really be part of the town. Or, go to France and do this. And I was talking to her, interviewing a lady on my podcast the other day, and she basically, that's her life that she lives. She just figured it out way the hell longer or earlier than I did. But that's basically what she does. She has a completely nomadic lifestyle. She can go wherever she wants. Her boyfriend, same way. And we want to have the ability to do that.
There we go. I love it. Well, any other dreams or goals? We got get your own freedom day, kind of remove
Mhm.
yourself from those businesses and help people get their own freedom day. Does that kind of sum it up for you?
That's it. I mean, that's really my focus. I'm massively working. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, and I'd encourage people to connect on LinkedIn, that's my place. One of my positions, you'll see all the businesses I own. But one of my positions on there is that I am the chief crosser offer of my bucket list,
Mm,
of Jeff's bucket list. And that's my passion right now is I'm just actively knocking off stuff on my bucket list. I share that on the YouTube channel all the time of just stuff that I'm going and doing. When I was in England, I mean, we knocked off 10 bucket list items for my wife and I while we were over there doing a little bucket list stacking. And, one of which was on my list I call planes, trains, and automobiles.
yeah.
I was telling you, there was 12 items on my bucket list that involve planes, trains, or automobiles and boats. And I figured out, well, all of them were about $400 to $500. So if I just bought a piece of real estate that paid me $500 a month cash flow, I could go do all those items. So I started my first one, which was that I wanted to drive an Aston Martin V12 Vantage at Silverstone Raceway, which I did when I was over there in February.
Mm, I love it.
And Lamborghini at Coda is coming up. Drift School down in San Marcos is coming up. So
So epic.
yeah.
So epic. Well, awesome, man. What are the top 1 to 2 skills that you need to develop right now to bring these dreams and goals into fruition?
Well, and I think this is, if I would talk to the audience about one thing, it is the power of having great mentors and having people in your life that encourage you. I just went through a 3-day mentorship program with one of my favorite people on the planet. His name is Jim Cathcart. And Jim, has been a wonderful mentor for me. This is a guy that spent 45 years traveling around the world as a professional speaker
Yeah.
and doing every meeting and doing everything that he ever wanted to do. And Jim runs a mastermind that, goes for a year long. And, one of the things that I had to do, and this is a skill that I love to create stuff, but once again, I told you I don't like to run it.
Yeah.
So I really had to force myself to say, okay, I've got to work against my nature, which is to just create stuff and say, okay, here's the filter. If it doesn't fit this very specific thing that we're trying to accomplish, we're not doing it. And so I've been saying no, which is one of the things that I have not been able to do in my past. I'm saying no to both others and to myself if it isn't something that isn't directly related with the direction that we're going as a business.
Yeah. That's an important skill right
Yeah.
there.
Find good mentors because they help you do that.
Yeah. Great mentors and great community.
Yeah.
I was talking to my brother earlier today and I was like, Theo, we've spent our whole life just playing small. Like just our whole life.
Yeah.
Especially because I was listening to a venture capitalist the other day when he was 22 years old,
Mhm.
found this multifamily real estate deal that had like 315 units, and he
Oof.
realized that each tenant, they were about to, do their value add flip on the
Mm.
syndication. Some real estate investors were. And what this guy realized was that each tenant had the first like right to buy, basically. And
Okay.
he was like, they're about to sell this for $150,000 over market value for each of these. And these tenants have the first right to buy. So he wrote a letter to each of the tenants and was like, hey, you have a huge opportunity here. You should take advantage of it. But if you don't, I'll pay you $1,000 if you assign your rights to me.
Oh,
And
that is awesome.
yeah, then you can
Yeah.
move on my $1,000 or whatever. And this was back in 2004 when $1,000 carried a bit more weight.
Mm.
And so he did that, and like 220 people assigned their rights to him. And
Uh,
and so then he goes to the investors that are about to sell this deal, and he was like, "Hey, I got the first right to buy, and I'm going to buy it at fair market value because it was right to buy at fair market value, which was
okay.
sub 150K what they were gonna uh,
Oh, geez. That
sell
is
each unit for."
awesome.
Yeah, and so then they're like, "Okay, what do you want?" He was like,
Yeah.
"I just want 20K of the 150K that you're going to make on every unit." So then he made $20,000 on 300,
On
400
300
units.
units. That
Yeah,
is genius.
and
Absolutely genius. Recovers his $200,000 that he put up. And
he didn't even put it up because he told the
yeah,
people that it would
is contingent upon,
the sale.
the sale of the, that's awesome.
Yep,
Is
yep.
absolutely genius.
And he
Yeah.
just
Cause
pocketed 5.5 million at 22
yeah.
years.
Yeah. And then hands, all right, guys, if you want to move, you can move or whatever, but that's fine. But
Yep.
yeah, that is just awesome. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
genius.
Yeah, and I'm like, that happened because he was a 22-year-old kid and he was
Yep.
hanging out with the top realtors in the area. And they got invited to a multifamily showing that they weren't even interested in, but then he got a lease for it, saw it in the lease. So just happenstance. Like it was so
It's
just
genius.
positioning. He was just right in
Yeah.
the
But
right
I
spot
mean,
at the
but
right time.
yeah, you have it right though. It's playing small,
Yeah.
and for a long time I played small,
Hmm.
and then it was like, you know what? I'm just not going to be small anymore. It's funny because my former partner, we did all this stuff when we, sold out of the business and non solicits and all this. And I'm like, I don't want anything
Yeah.
because I am on such a grander scale now. I mean, I look at the world as my customer base now, not
Yeah.
just like this little slice of the world here in Cedar Park.
Yeah.
I look at the world because I'm like, one, everybody needs their freedom. And two, it doesn't matter what country you're in.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about specifics of, well, yeah, you need to invest in this specific investment. I mean, I'm talking big concepts of create cash flow.
Hmm.
Real estate's everywhere.
Yeah.
Businesses are everywhere. Today, I don't care what country you're in, as long as you have access to the internet, you can create a business.
It's true.
You can create revenue streams and all kinds of stuff. You've just got to put your time and effort in and, start small, but think big.
So true. It's so true. Well, awesome. What are the highest impact daily actions that are going to tick the needle forward towards your dreams and goals?
Highest impact is, and a great question, by the way. For me, it's routine.
Hmm.
So I am absolutely obsessive about my routine. I wake up every morning. Admiral McCraven had a speech that he gave as the CENTCOM commander. He gave a speech at UT where he said, "Get up and make your bed every day."
Yep.
And I have obsessively done that for 20 years. Well, since I heard that, so it's probably 9 years ago.
Hmm.
Obsessively, I get up in the morning, I make my bed. Boom. If I don't, it totally screws my day. If
Yeah.
I walk back into the room and it's not made, it's just like, ugh.
Uh-huh.
I use technology to keep me on a routine in the morning. So, I get up, I go downstairs, do a little bit of reading, kind of plan out my day. What do I got to do? And then I go upstairs, get ready for work. Typically I'm up at 6 a.m. every day. I wake up without a clock.
Yeah.
Um, Go
Excellent way to
downstairs,
lead.
read, get up, walk. I go into my bedroom and I have my Alexa. I say, Alexa, start my day. And I have a whole routine on there of some meditations, breathing exercises. It reads me my schedule for the day, gives me an inspirational quote. While I'm getting dressed, all this is going on. And then it's timed perfectly to when I'm fully dressed and I'm ready to walk out the door. I get to play my wrestling fight song, which is it's a song by a band called oh god, my brain just completely shut off. Just literally just shut off. But it's a series of different songs. A lot of them are Imagine Dragons songs
Yeah.
because they're just all great, kind of like wrestling. Imagine when you're going into the wrestling ring, and so that's what I do typically every day. And then I've got about a 5-minute drive to the office. And on that 5-minute call, I typically find something on YouTube. Big Eric Thomas fan. He's just a
ET.
genius. And that's kind of my little motivation. I play in the car on the way to work. And then it's get in, hit the ground running. I eat the frog first. So, an old expression, eat the frog when you get in. So find the thing that you don't want to do most and get it done right away. I typically I have a day timer. I have a very structured, like what I need to accomplish every week. And it goes from what I need to accomplish annually. So I have a sheet that
Yeah.
breaks down into quarterly goals, which then breaks down into weekly accomplishments or goals that I have to accomplish that week. And, basically it's just a little sheet that I work from, and it's got, 3 main goals for the week broken into 5 tasks that need to be completed. And then I take those 5 tasks and I put them, no more than 3 per day, which gets me to 15 for the week,
Yeah.
and then there's a little spillover on the weekends if I have to, but I don't like working weekends. And that's all I do. I accomplish 3 things every day. That's it. As long as I accomplish those 3 things, I'm moving towards my end goal.
Mm. There we go.
No more big task lists that roll day but after day after day after day. That used to be my old world, and I would get nothing accomplished because I'm like, crap, there's like 30 things on the list and I didn't get anything done today. But when I get done by noon and I've got all 3 of my things checked off that I need to get done that day, I either get to go home and goof off. I don't work Fridays anymore
Yeah.
at all. I mean, I'll work maybe a half day occasionally, but most of the time I work 4 days a week. And somebody was talking to me in this mastermind. They're like, well, so are you working like 45, 50 hours in those 4 days? And I'm like, I kind of work like 6 hours a day.
Yep.
And in those other 4 days, I mean, I accomplish what I need to accomplish, and I don't do a bunch of BS crap. I don't check emails all day. Sometimes I don't check them for a couple days. My clients all know that it's not that I don't love you. Just call me or text me if you need something. Otherwise, I don't really check email. So
Yeah. There we go. I love it. I love how your routine is built on prioritization and execution.
Yep, that's it. My life is based on results, not activities.
Mm. There we go. Well, awesome. What character trait do you most need to develop right now to kind of make that dream life come true?
I'm a giving person, but I want to take that to the next level. I really I've had wonderful mentors in my life. I'm spending more time being a good mentor to other people. I've always had a philosophy that somebody taught me that you spend your day with 3 categories of people. I have people that are where I was years ago, that I mentor and I help and I act as a somebody that they can look up to from that perspective. I work with a local entrepreneurship program in a high school here, so I am that guy that helps kind of mentor. I spend about a third of my time with people that are kind of where I'm at right now. So we're all kind of fighting alligators in the trenches together, and we can share experiences and sometimes bitch about it with each other. And, it's people that you can relate to. And then I spend about a third of my time with mentors who are where I want to go. And I very distinctly break down mentors versus coaches.
Mm.
Um, I believe in finding mentors, not coaches.
Yeah.
Mentors are people who are actively involved in doing what they're mentoring you on. So if I want to know about real estate, I'm going to find the best and baddest ass real estate investor in town, and I'm going to figure out a way that I can help him or
Yep.
her. I'm going to figure out some way I can add value to their life, and maybe some of that will kind of filter down to me. And I believe in paying mentors to do that. I don't believe in just having a relationship where I'm take and I don't give. So I believe in paying them for their time. Coaches, there are some good coaches, but a lot of times they're people that have theory and they've never actually done it
Yep.
physically. I always laugh at the life coaches. Well, I'm a life coach, and I'm like, well, your life is totally screwed up. Why the hell would I listen to you?
Yep.
So
100%. 100%. That's one of the things like I love, obviously, from this podcast, helping people with their dreams and goals. And one of the things I want to help people do is like get to the point where they're, um, buying businesses, buying real estate.
yeah.
I'm like, I can help people kind of on the side right now. Like when they ask me, I can converse with them about it, but I can't make it a full-time thing until I own successful businesses and own cash flowing real
And own
estate.
cash flowing real estate. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It's like, I felt in some aspects of fraud. Being in the financial services business for as long as I've been, it was funny because I had this kind of, it was weird. I mean, it was just kind of sitting there last year, and I'm like, I can't lie to people.
Yeah.
I just can't lie to people. I don't believe in the traditional way of doing things anymore. And I can't look you in the face and go, well, this is the way to do it, knowing that that ain't the way to do it. That's not going to do it. Some people are just going to be, they're like, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way my parents taught me. Um, and that's the way I'm going to do it. But, for most of us, I'm like, this is something that, if you want to, that's the people I want to help.
Yeah.
Those people that are out there that are like, hey, I don't like this. I have a new client that I'm working with, and it's hilarious because we started and he was like, okay, so I'm 52. I want to be out of this job by I'm 54. So I'm like, great. We got 12 years. We got more than enough time to do that. And he's like, hey, I was listening to your podcast and you were talking about, you can get somebody there in 10 years, and he's like a traditional dude. Let's just invest in, investments and
Yeah.
that's it. He's like, okay, well, how can, I want to do this in 10 years, like you said. So I'm like, great. Okay, well, then we got to think about this differently. We got to think about where we're putting our money and, use some different techniques and some leverage and things like that. And he didn't really want to buy real estate except to live on. So he's like, okay, great. And I did the plan for him. I'm like, okay, 10 years, we're good, bud. This is it. Can we do it in 8? Like, you're killing me, man. Okay, well, we have to do this. Well, I think I've got an extra 40 grand in my budget that I can put towards this. Okay.
Good
Okay,
to
it
know.
works. Perfectly fine. Yeah, we got this. We're good. Well, can we do it in 7? I'm like, okay, come on now.
Yeah.
Killing me here. I mean, we still can, but I mean, it's once you get somebody excited about that, and it combines with I'm excited about it and I vehemently hate my job. Uh, it's it's easy when they have motivation, and those are the fun people to work with because you know what, when they see that little glittery thing in their eye and they're like, ooh, I can buy this, he's going to go, okay, that's going to cost me another year of working that I hate,
Yep.
so I'm not doing that. I'm going to focus on this. And that's, like I said, that's the people I want to work with and I have fun with. And, we all eventually are going to probably have a client meeting in some place, where it's like, okay, we're going to go to Colorado and all hang out together because we're all weird and, we're different from everybody else.
Yeah. 100%. No, I love it. I think it's an important fact to remember of like you can't really change people's desires for them.
Mm-mm,
So if they're not willing to make the change, if they're not willing to take the steps, it's like
mm-mm.
I can give you all the information in the world. I can even hold you accountable to it. But if you're not going to do it, I'm not going
No,
to.
no. Yeah. And I've worked with Dave Ramsey people for years. And I mean, that's been the fun part of working with Dave Ramsey people is they come to me, they're already fixed. I don't have to convince them to get out of debt and save money. That's what they know how to do. Now you got to get them to think bigger
Yep.
about what you can do with that. And that's the fun part of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't deal with a lot of people that I'm like, okay, you can't buy the ginormous big screen TV. You don't need a TV that makes people 3 times your size on it to impress people. It's like I drive 3 vehicles that are over, well, that my youngest vehicle is 4 years old at
Yep.
this point. Could I buy a really expensive vehicle? Yeah. Could I buy a Lamborghini? Probably not. But you know what? I can pay $400 and drive one around a Dakota track here in Austin.
Yeah.
Awesome experience on the proper place to enjoy that vehicle, not driving it around Austin with potholes and everything else.
Yep.
So I don't have to do that. I save my money where I can and I don't spend it stupidly. And I get to go do basically whatever the hell I want whenever I want, which is the cool part. And I
Yeah.
reward myself with that. I mean, I have you could see this little chart behind me and it's almost completed for the quarter, but basically I've got all these little sticky notes on it with tasks that need to be completed. Once they're completed, I pull the sticky notes off, but at the top of the chart there's a reward that if I clean off the week's things, there's a bucket list item that I get to go and do and reward myself with. So it's those little tiny rewards along the way. And sometimes they're a big thing like driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Other times it's like, hey, let's go hang out at the, I'm going to go take a day off and go fishing.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bucket list item, but it's a small little thing. Or I'm going to go hang out with my dad who's, 85 years old. I'm going to go hang out and we're going to go fishing together. That's an event, and that's something that you can look back and go, we got to do that. We got to spend time together.
Yeah. I love it. All right, we got one last question for you because we got to wrap it
Fire
up.
away.
If there were one or two people you could meet right now, and it could be a specific person or a type of person, and they'd really help you take that next step towards your dreams and goals, who would they be and how would they do it?
Brandon Barber, I would love to meet. Brandon's the founder of Bigger Pockets real estate website. I am going to figure out a way to meet him. He's on my, so I have a basically a Dream 100 list of people that I'd like to have on my podcast, and I cyber stalk them. So basically I just unfriended everybody on my, or not unfriended, but unfollowed a whole bunch of people on my social media. And I follow all these people and I watch what they do and I comment and share and everything else. And he's helped me immensely, and he doesn't even know it
Yeah.
at this point. He was the guy that kind of gave me that impetus to go, okay, I'm gonna change like my company to focus on real estate more. And so yeah, he's a guy that I really want to get to know.
And what was it again? Brandon Turner?
Brandon Turner. Yep. Sorry, I said Barber,
Gotcha, gotcha.
who's another friend of mine. But
I see, I see, I see.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah, Brandon Turner. Yeah, cool guy. Brandon Beard on
yeah.
Instagram. He
Uh-huh.
always puts cool stuff out there.
Yeah, no, he's a really cool guy, and he just took it. He blew up his company. Like
He did it.
I was following him back when he was like, he had just started his flipping company, and he was like broke. Like,
Hmm.
just he wasn't broke. He might have
Yeah.
been a millionaire by that point, but it wasn't like anywhere where it is now. Now he has
Yeah.
open door capital where he's like thousands of units, and he works like 5 or 10 hours a week on it, and
Hmm.
just really optimized his life in that way. So
Yeah. Which is a fantastic, I mean, it's a fantastic company that's provided capital for people.
yep,
It's genius. Well, and he's got, multiple companies and everything else. So I mean and he's not old. I mean, I think he's in his 30s at
yeah,
most.
mid to late
Yeah,
30s, I'm pretty
mid
sure.
to late 30s, great guy. I mean, just, down to earth, straightforward. And that community, the Bigger Pockets community, I've just found amazing, wonderful people that have been part of that are very open, and are like, hey, here's what I would suggest. And I'm not afraid to just go out there and kind of dump it out there and say, well, this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And the more people that go, yeah, that's a really dumb idea, I'm like, that means it's a good idea. Because I've
Uh-huh.
heard that my entire career, when everybody's like, oh, it's a stupid idea. Why would you open a co-working space? Nobody even knows what co-working is. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm the only one that survived. Out of all the co-working spaces in my town, I'm the only one that survived
Yeah.
at this point. So maybe we did something right.
I love it. I love it. Well, awesome, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Timmy, thank you, man. I appreciate it. For your listeners, I'm a podcaster as well. This is a hard job. You feel like you're beating your head against the wall sometimes. So, wherever you're listening to this, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you comment and share this. Because this is good stuff that all these things are out there, and Timmy's working his butt off to get the information out there. Share it with people.
Yeah, please. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you guys are listening to this and you loved what Jeff had to say, make sure to reach out to him, listen to his podcast, like,
Mhm.
review, and share that with your friends as well. And hit him up if you need help getting to your freedom day.
Absolutely.
Yep. All the links to do so will be down in the show notes. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.